So silver is sending a warning that the bank collapses might have just started. We can see silver's down 10% today on the same day that Bitcoin just slipped into the 65,000s. And we can see that there's some rumors circulating that Coinbase has frozen yet again. This is, of course, one of the biggest exchanges, and this is happening in the same week that Binance, another huge exchange, is in some serious trouble as $17 billion has left the platform in the past week alone. And some people are now beginning to send the warning on Binance. But what's interesting is it's not just Binance and Coinbase experiencing a little bit of trouble this week. We've just seen our first lender in the Bitcoin space blow up since FTX. And of course, FTX blowing up back in 2022, this was the catalyst that pushed Bitcoin under $20,000. So a lot of people now are starting to wonder what is going on. Is this the first bankruptcy in the Bitcoin space that could lead to a lot more pain? And what is this going to mean for the broader markets? Let's dive in and start looking at what happened. So as we can see, Susquehanna-backed crypto lender BlockFills has officially halted clients' withdrawals. Again, if a bank or if a lender halts withdrawals, this is a massive warning sign of what is to come. And again, this is exactly what happened with FTX back in 2022. FTX didn't just go bankrupt out of nowhere. There was warning signs for a couple of weeks that the platform was experiencing serious stress. And then obviously we saw one of the biggest bankruptcies in the Bitcoin space. Pay very close attention to the warning signs. So BlockFills is the first big lender that is now seeing a lot of issues and stress. And again, let me just give you some context of why I'm especially concerned now. We can see stress in the broader market. We can see the number of Bitcoin on exchanges dropping like a rock as people are pulling their liquidity from a lot of these platforms. And this is all happening at a time of max fear. Again, look at this. What is one of the lowest levels of fear that we saw in the market? It was back in 2022 during the FTX collapse. We got a reading of 12 on the fear and greed index. People were fearful. They were pulling their money out of the exchanges. And again, some of the warning signs that we saw with FTX are beginning to reappear today with Binance. Again, you could just call this a coincidence. But Binance's data was a little bit faulty on this platform. Binance inflow and outflow data just disappeared. For the number one exchange in the world, that is a big red flag. Absolutely, it's a red flag, especially when we just saw $17 billion worth of money leave Binance. Again, I'll repeat, let's put that into context. 17 billion is absolutely massive. FTX was one of the biggest Ponzi schemes since Bernie Madoff, and that was at about $30 billion. That's how big the bankruptcy and the rug pull of FTX was when that collapsed. Again, Terra Luna was a similar size. But let's not forget that whole year, we saw warning signals leading up to the FTX collapse. We saw stresses in Celsius, BlockFi. We saw a lot of these smaller lenders go under before the big dog dropped. And that, of course, marked a bottom for Bitcoin and a very nice buying opportunity. I'm not saying that we're going to see one of the biggest exchanges collapse tomorrow, but what I am saying is pay very close attention because we're now starting to see some signs that some big players in the space are experiencing stress. We can see this is a brand new article, came out 4:43 this morning, February 12th. Institutional crypto platform BlockFills said that it halts withdrawals and restricted trading. This is showing us shades of 2022. Again, for anyone who might not have been around in Bitcoin in 2022, there was a lot of warning signs that we were about to see FTX collapse before it happened. Again, this company, BlockFills, it handled $60 billion of trading volume last year. It's a lot. It's not insignificant. Yes, it's not as big as Celsius, FTX, or any of the really big ones with, tens of billions of dollars of assets, but it is very, very big. And again, right now, Binance is having to come out and publicly defend a lot of these allegations. Again, FTX did the same thing. What did FTX say? They came out a week before bankruptcy and said, don't worry, funds are safe. There's nothing to worry about here. It's concerning, especially when you start considering what's going on in the broader markets right now. We are seeing a little bit of a shakeup with liquidity. Japan is dumping bonds. And markets right now, well, I mean, you guys saw what happened to silver. Silver dropped 10% in about 30 minutes. Just before I went live today, you can see dumped from $83 to a low of $74. Something's happening. Something right now is beginning to, I don't want to say break, but things are breaking behind closed scenes. And again, if we were ever to get warnings that something is about to happen, I think it would look like what we are seeing right now. Now I did say I was going to look at the charts. Let me hold off on the charts for a moment. Maybe let's dive into a little bit more detail. Surrounding what's happening at Binance, because again, it depends on how you measure the outflow that we've seen at Binance. But have a look at this chart. $56 billion has left Binance reserves. Think about that for a moment. It's gone from above 200 billion to below 150. And this has happened in 2 weeks. This isn't clickbait, but if we see the same trend for the next 2 months, Binance has zero, nothing. This isn't speculation this is just straight maths. If the same amount of outflows that we've seen since January 16th continues, you guys can do the maths. Binance has lost more than 25% of its reserves in 3 weeks. Extrapolate that out another 9 weeks, Binance has zero. Nada, nothing. This is, again, a serious concern. People are getting sued on Twitter for pointing this out, which is, again, another big warning sign. I'm going to be very clear. I'm not making any allegations. I don't have any information. But when people get sued for just speculating about these types of things, it's something I'm paying attention to. Here's the tweet. I don't even want to read it. Because again, I'm just showing you the data. I'm just showing you what's happening with inflows and outflows. And just reminding you, we saw the same thing in 2022. That's it. I don't have any insider information. All we can say with certainty is that for the past 3 to 4 years, we continue to see Bitcoin leaving the exchanges. It's as simple as that. And right now, to answer this question, right now, Bitcoin is seeing a little bit of a liquidity crisis. Let me reframe. Crisis is a strong word. That's a little bit inflammatory. Bitcoin's seeing a correction. Again, we're down 50% in the past 3 months. It's kind of wild. Think about it for a moment. Silver's down 50% in the past 3 weeks. So I'm not going to call it a crisis. Bitcoin's seen another correction, and it's very healthy to see a 50% pullback after we just rallied from $15,000 to 126. Again, context, we just went up 700%. We bottomed in 2022. We went up 700%. I don't think there's anything wrong with a 50% pullback in the middle of those kind of rallies. It's completely normal. Again, silver's tripled or gone up 300 or 400%. It's down 50% in 3 weeks. I think silver's seen the bigger crisis here. It's not necessarily a Bitcoin related story. What I'm continuing to watch though, guys, is the NASDAQ kind of looks like it's still kind of on a cliff's edge. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We've been watching this story for a couple of months, to be honest. I'm just going to say, if Bitcoin's had a 50% pullback and stocks have been relatively sideways, what happens if stocks get a 10% pullback? Be ready to buy the dip. That's all I'm going to say. I have no idea where the price is going to go in the short term or the medium term. Again, this is not a trading channel. This is not a stock trading channel. I don't think it matters whether you buy Bitcoin at 60,000 or 50,000 or 70,000, because in 5 years from now, these buys are going to be great buying opportunities. And the biggest issue that I see in the space right now is so many people are convinced that Bitcoin's going 45,000. Now is not the time to be selling your Bitcoin, hoping to rebuy it back earlier. Oh, lower, sorry. Shouldn't be doing that. Now is not the time to do that. We're 50% from all-time highs. And I'm seeing this rhetoric a lot today. We saw the same thing in 2022. Everybody was bearish on the way down. And it's just what you see. Again, I want to look at the charts more in a moment, but I'll remind you, nation states right now, they don't care. They are buying the dip in size. I'm going to play a short clip for you guys that I saw on CNBC this morning.
Towards mining Bitcoin, which gives them some sovereignty over their own printing press. And we now count 13 different countries that are mining Bitcoin at the central government level.
13 countries mining Bitcoin at the government level. Again, nation states are mining, nation states are buying. Now is the time to buy. Now is not the time to sell. Now is the time to be very vigilant, as we're beginning to see the rumors of big companies now starting to halt withdrawals. Again, I wasn't going to do this video because I don't have a clue what's going on with Binance. But then I saw today Coinbase was also halting withdrawals, and I was like, oh shit, maybe something wider is happening right now. Again, for silver to drop 10% in 30 minutes, that's a warning sign. Stocks kind of look like they're on a cliff's edge right now. It's a warning sign. Let's talk a little bit more about BlockFills. This is the small crypto lender that we're talking about. BlockFills has halted withdrawals and restricted trading on the platform. So they're based in Chicago. Now, what's interesting about this story? Why do I find it interesting that this crypto lender is in Chicago? Well, we saw the first bank collapse in over a year in America last week. Who remembers that? We did a video on this topic. Chicago's Metropolitan Capital Bank becomes the first US bank failure of 2026. We said this is very rarely going to be an isolated event. Here we go. BlockFills is based in Chicago. And what we saw in 2022 is that you see a lot of contagion. Think about it. We saw Silicon Valley Bank collapse, Silvergate collapse, FTX, BlockFi, Celsius. There was commingling of funds. All of these exchanges were connected in one way, shape, or form. This is, again, why I think what we're seeing right now needs to be observed. You need to be paying attention to what's happening. Now is not the time to be putting your head in the sand and ignoring what's happening. Again, I'll remind you, 25% of Binance's reserves are gone in the past, what? 3 weeks. It's nuts. Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, just dropped out of the 500 richest people. His net worth has fallen by more than $10 billion just 7 months ago. Maybe his net worth would have been a lot higher if he had a Bitcoin exchange. We'll come back to Brian in a moment. Let's bring ourselves up to speed with what's happening at BlockFills in light of a recent market and financial conditions, and to further the protection of clients and the firm. BlockFills took the action last week of temporarily suspending client deposits and withdrawals. Clients have been able to continue trading for the purpose of opening and closing positions in spot and derivatives trading. Okay, so you can open and close trades, but you can't take your money off the platform. Ding, 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 ding. Alarm bells. Pay very close attention to what's happening right now if you have Bitcoin on any exchange, because like we learned in 2022, Contagion spreads. It spreads fast. Again, this is why I always talk about these things. A lot of people think you never need a hardware wallet until you wished you had a hardware wallet. Again, I got links down below to two of my favorite hardware wallets, Ledger and Trezor. Just go and deal with your Bitcoin right now. Now is not the time to be complacent. It is as simple as that. Now is the time to get your Bitcoin and your ducks in a row. Again, if you do need help taking self-custody of your Bitcoin, I know that setting up a hardware wallet can be a little bit complicated. I've also recently partnered up with the Bitcoin Way because so many of you guys have said, hey, look, Bitcoin's a bit complicated. I need help. I'm a bit lazy. I don't have the time to help all of you guys individually. So I partnered with the Bitcoin Way. If you do want just a free 30-minute consultation where you can ask the guys at the Bitcoin Way how they can help you, there is a link down below in the description of today's show notes for you. So take advantage of that and get your shit in a row while you still can. Something else we talked about this week before we get back onto the exchanges, we said, if you're a European Bitcoiner, be damn careful out there. Sadly, another cryptocurrency millionaire was just kidnapped in Paris yesterday. They've dragged him out of his apartment. They don't care that there's people walking on the streets. They've thrown him in the back of what looks to be a Toyota Corolla. What is going on in France? Again, the criminals are getting smarter because as Lugar in the comments said, I love that name, is 0.1 Bitcoin going to be good in the future? Like in 10 years, you think? Absolutely, I think 0.1 Bitcoin is going to be good in the future. This is why these criminals are coming after Bitcoin, because it is the best asset in the world. If you want to know just how good 0.1 Bitcoin will be in the future, let's jump on over to my favorite platform. This is created by Jimbo, the Consensualist. Hello. Love that name. 0.1 Bitcoin. Let's have a look at what his platform, When Moon, says you can retire with 0.1 Bitcoin. So you see, let's say I want to spend $100,000 a year. Let's actually pull our fingers out of the wazoo and let's get real for a minute. Let's say Bitcoin's annual appreciation rate is going to be 70%, not 20%. I don't know where those numbers come from. That's bearish. But you can see when we assume that, you can retire by 2034 with just 10% of a Bitcoin. So yes, I do think 0.1 Bitcoin is going to be incredibly valuable in the future. Just start buying today, guys. Don't get too cute out there. I see a lot of people now coming to the realization, okay, we're in a bear market. maybe I should listen to Gareth Soloway or Mike McGlone, who thinks Bitcoin's going to go to 10K. I think it's incredibly unlikely that Bitcoin goes to 10K, okay? So don't listen to the bears. Now is not the time to be selling your Bitcoin. Everybody agrees now it's a bear market. That is not the time to be selling and hoping to rebuy earlier. Don't do that. It's a really bad idea. Now is a great time to be averaging in. I want to talk more about price in the moment, but this is an interesting comment. I wonder if the Epstein files drop is causing these people at the top of the food chain to protect their assets. Again, we did a video every single day during the week that the World Economic Forum conference happened. We said a lot of them are talking about economic resets over there. Don't you think that's strange? I don't think it's a coincidence that you see the week of the World Economic Forum conference shenanigans, then you see gold and silver attacked in the week after that conference. As everybody agrees, we're living through an economic reset. Ursula von der Leyen specifically mentioned 1971, the Nixon shock. They never openly talk about the gold standard. Never. That's like the agreed upon law. It's like Voldemort. You don't say Voldemort's name out loud. This is how central bankers and politicians act. You never talk about the gold standard. Never. And when they're talking about it in public, it's a sign. Oh no, Friday the 13th is tomorrow. Look, I've been bear posting a little bit about stocks recently. Wouldn't surprise me to just see a pullback in stocks. Like we've been talking about for a while, the Nasdaq's been looking toppy. A lot of people will say that the Epstein files is why stocks like Microsoft is dumping. But again, typically you can see insiders exiting well before the news comes out. So I'm just saying, if you've got Microsoft getting nuked like this, down what looks to be over 30% from its peak. Let's have a look. Peak to trough, we saw a 30% correction in Microsoft. This is on log, so it looks pretty friendly. Who knows, guys? Stay vigilant out there. Stay very, very vigilant. Nvidia is also kind of just been chopping sideways here for some time. I'm keeping a very, very close eye on Nvidia. Who knows what's going to happen with Nvidia? And who knows if it does have a pullback, what this is going to do to Bitcoin. Again, I think the signal here, I don't want to just be a doomer and a gloomer. The signal here is the world's largest banks are going all in quietly. We can see Goldman Sachs has now disclosed a $2.3 billion, dirty word coming, crypto portfolio. They've got over $1 billion of Bitcoin. Again, if a multi-trillion-dollar bank is aggressively buying Bitcoin during this correction, I mean, maybe they know something that we don't. Again, everything's a probability. And I think to Papa Marty's point, there's a probability that 52K was the bottom. There's a chance. I actually listened to Checkmate in an interview yesterday, and he said there's a 50 to 60% chance that that was the bottom. I kind of see things in a similar light. There's a 20 to 30% chance that that was the bottom. You missed it. I've got a whole show prepped on what the Netherlands and the rest of Europe seems to be doing this week. Because every week, Europe just seems to surprise me. With how aggressively they're pursuing the whole digital ID, digital prison. It's nuts. It's crazy. I think you've probably got 12 months left before money in the bank just... The guardrails get put up and it gets converted into a digital euro. I think that day's coming really quickly. Again, prepare for that by getting your money outside the system and using tools like Firefish that lets you use your Bitcoin as a collateral asset. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like Bitcoin because I can't get a loan against my Bitcoin. You can. This is why I always encourage you to learn more about what Firefish is doing. Again, when Bitcoin is crashing, this is the time to be buying the dip. If you don't have any fiat, consider borrowing against a small chunk of your Bitcoin stack. I'm doing this myself right now. I'm borrowing against my Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin. And if it goes lower, I'm going to do more. So again, check out Firefish. You can get, I think, 30% off your fees if you use promo code Luke. Again, 30% off. That's a significant discount. And Firefish, they've literally open sourced their entire protocol online so that you can go and verify how their multi-signature vaults work. They show you where the funds are so that you don't have to just pray and hope and listen to a trust me bro like we're seeing on Binance right now. And Coinbase. Somebody let me know in the comment section whether Coinbase has resumed trading or not. But I saw Zero Hedge tweeting about it this morning. And hey, you know what they say about coincidences? You've got Coinbase halting trading. You've got a massive Chicago-based lender halting withdrawals, and you've got $50 billion of assets leaving Binance. All of that happening in the same week. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but to Elaine's comment, this is big. This is a warning. If you've been putting off taking custody of your assets, now is the time. Now is the time to really get your ducks in a row and start taking your custody a lot more seriously. If you're looking for a way to accumulate Bitcoin that doesn't actually put you in harm, again, the reason why we're seeing all of these physical attacks on Bitcoiners in France right now is because the insiders in the tax authorities are literally just selling your information to criminals. We've seen a 200% rise in crime and violence. This is, again, a lot of people ask me, Luke, Europe looks pretty good. Why don't you live there? I'm sorry, guys. My mic went out for a moment. I was just saying, be very careful out there. A lot of people have run the numbers. A lot of people have gotten bullish on Bitcoin, but they're stuck with their Bitcoin on Binance or in an insecure setup. Europe is absolutely horrible. Again, this is why I always encourage you to learn about the tools. Get started mining Bitcoin with Blockware. They have solutions. If you want a more secure Bitcoin setup, reach out to my friends at Bitvault. They can help you create a multi-signature or a time-locked Bitcoin wallet. This protects you from these physical wrench attacks. They're going to give you 10% off if you use the link in the description. Sadly, a lot of Europe is falling, and the policies that Europeans are racing to implement. Spain is just an example that this is not going to slow down. And sadly, the people of Europe are not waking up. We always say, guys, I hope you wake up if you got Bitcoin on exchange. Just a quick little update. Don't want to waste any more of your time.